He walked into the room and froze. His heart skipped a beat, his eyes locked on a scene. He could not believe his daughter standing there with a homeless girl, a girl with torn clothes, dirt on her hands, and a look in her eyes that no one could ignore. The room fell silent. A thick tension filled the air. Everyone turned to look, but no one dared to speak. The moment seemed frozen in time. He felt an unfamiliar mixture of shock, anger, and fear coursing through his veins. The unexpected sight was like a punch to his chest. He had spent his life protecting his daughter, shielding her from harm, and giving her everything she could ever want, but now she was here showing kindness to someone he had always believed did not belong in her world. He could feel his thoughts racing, and his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. Questions swirled uncontrollably. How long had this been going on? Why did she hide it from him? What was this girl trying to teach her? His breath became shallow, and the silence around him pressed like a weight. He felt the need to act, to demand answers, yet part of him was frozen, captivated by the innocence and sincerity in the homeless girl's eyes. For a brief instant, the world outside disappeared. There was only the three of them in that room, the air thick with unspoken words and tension that could snap at any second. He clenched his fists and tried to steady himself, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything in his life forever. This was not just a simple encounter. This was a moment that would test his beliefs, challenge his judgments, and reveal truths he had never anticipated. The girl looked at his daughter and smiled timidly, a smile so genuine that it cut through his confusion and hesitation. It was a silent message, a message he was only beginning to understand. The daughter met her gaze and held it with a warmth and sincerity that made him question everything he thought he knew about her and about the world around him. He could see her compassion shining through, and for the first time he realized that perhaps he had underestimated the power of empathy. The silent exchange between them carried weight heavier than words could express. He took a cautious step forward. The envelope he had noticed earlier on the table now seemed more significant than ever, as if it held the key to understanding why this girl had come into their lives, why his daughter had chosen to connect with someone so different from their world. He swallowed hard, his mind racing through scenarios, possibilities, and questions that demanded answers, but he knew that he had to approach this carefully. The wrong move could shatter the fragile trust and innocence of the moment. He glanced at the homeless girl again and felt a tug at his heart. He realized that judgment and assumptions had no place here. Only the truth, only understanding could guide him. Now he drew in a deep breath and silently promised himself that he would discover the story behind this encounter, that he would listen and learn before making any decision, that he would open the envelope and face whatever truth awaited him, no matter how uncomfortable or shocking it might be. The room remained quiet save for the faint rustle of the wind outside the window, the sunlight filtering and cast long shadows across the floor and added an almost cinematic intensity to the moment. He stepped closer to the table and his eyes fell again on his daughter and the girl standing beside her. He could feel the story unfolding before him, a story that was bigger than wealth, bigger than status, bigger than control, a story about human connection, compassion, and the unexpected ways in which people touch each other's lives. And as he took that step forward, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again, and that this moment marked the beginning of a journey that would reveal hidden truths, challenge his perceptions, and test the very essence of what it meant to love and protect someone. He paused for a fraction of a second, taking in every detail, every expression, every movement, ready to face the revelation that awaited him, ready to understand the bond between his daughter and the girl who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. And in that instant, he felt a mix of dread, anticipation, and curiosity, knowing that everything he had believed about the situation was about to be turned upside down, and that the truth would shock him in ways he could never imagine. He had always believed that wealth and influence could solve any problem, that he could control every situation and protect his daughter from the harsh realities of the world. But now, standing in that room, he realized that some truths could not be shielded, that some experiences were beyond even the greatest fortune. He felt an unfamiliar vulnerability creeping, in a sense that despite all he had accomplished, he was powerless to understand the depth of his daughter's choices. The homeless girl had appeared so suddenly in their lives, yet she had already left an indelible mark, a mark that challenged everything he had built. And the anger that surged within him was not just about her presence, it was about his inability to anticipate and prevent this encounter. He looked at his daughter, her eyes filled with a mix of defiance and tenderness, and he felt the weight of disappointment pressing down on him. The daughter, who had always been a source of pride and joy, was now the center of a dilemma. that threatened to expose gaps in his understanding of her character and the world she inhabited. The situation was complex. He saw the judgmental glances of those around him, colleagues, acquaintances, and family members who whispered assumptions and speculations. Their eyes conveyed disbelief and quiet condemnation, yet none of them could truly grasp the bond forming before his eyes. The injustice he perceived was not rooted in social status or class distinctions. It was the sense that his daughter might be entangled with someone he had deemed unworthy, a thought that provoked frustration and fear in equal measure. He wanted to intervene, to assert control, to protect her from what he feared might be exploitation or harm, but he knew deep down that doing so would risk severing the fragile connection his daughter had nurtured. He felt torn between parental authority and the realization that she was growing into a person with independent judgment. The room seemed to close in around him. Every movement of his daughter, every gesture of the homeless girl seemed amplified, every glance a question that demanded an answer. He could sense the unfolding story beneath the surface, a narrative of compassion, resilience, and courage that he had never anticipated, and yet he struggled to reconcile this understanding with the discomfort it brought. The whispers in the background grew louder, and the pressure of external judgment became almost suffocating. He felt his pulse quicken, the realization that appearances could be deceiving gnawed at him. He had always relied on what he saw, what he was told, yet now he faced the possibility that reality was far more nuanced than he had allowed himself to consider. His mind raced, recalling previous incidents, small moments he had dismissed, the signs of empathy his daughter had shown toward those less fortunate, the times she had brought home stray animals or volunteered in secret. He remembered brushing off these actions as harmless or even frivolous. Now they took on a new weight. They were part of a pattern that he had overlooked, a pattern that had led to this very moment. He could not ignore the rising sense that his daughter had been quietly preparing to challenge the very structure of his controlled world. She had acted out of kindness, not rebellion, yet the consequences of her actions were undeniable, and he felt a complicated mix of admiration and frustration. The homeless girl remained quiet yet present. Her silence spoke volumes. She did not seek approval or pity. She only existed authentically in that space, creating a tension that forced him to confront his assumptions. The injustice he perceived was internal, a battle between his protective instincts and the recognition that his daughter was capable of independent moral judgment. The room seemed charged, every heartbeat amplified, every breath a reminder that he was witnessing the birth of a relationship that defied his expectations. He saw that the conflict was not about right or wrong. It was about understanding and the painful awareness that he could not dictate how his daughter would express her empathy. He clenched his fists, trying to process the enormity of the situation. The stakes were higher than he could have imagined. His reputation, his control, his beliefs about family and social hierarchy, all being tested simultaneously. And he realized that the moment demanded patience, observation, and above all, a willingness to let the story unfold without interference. He had to listen. He had to witness, and he had to learn before passing judgment. For the first time, he felt that power alone was insufficient, that influence and money could not shield him from the emotional complexity of human relationships, and he recognized the gravity of the choice before him. How he responded now would shape not only the trajectory of his daughter's life, but also his own understanding of love, protection, and the unforeseen consequences of assumptions. He took a deep, steadying breath, attempting to calm the storm inside him, to reconcile the protective father with the man learning humility and empathy in real time. He glanced at the envelope still on the table, a symbol of the unknown truths waiting to be revealed, and knew that the next step required courage, honesty, and a readiness to embrace what was about to unfold. The air was thick with anticipation, and the quiet tension between observation and action demanded every ounce of his attention. And as he prepared to uncover the truth, he felt the fragile balance between shock and revelation, poised on the edge of transformation. The envelope on the table seemed to call to him, a silent promise of answers and revelations that could not be ignored. He could feel the weight of it pressing against his awareness, as if the object itself contained the power to alter the course of the moment and change everything he had believed about his daughter, about the homeless girl, and about himself. The room felt smaller somehow. Every glance between his daughter and the girl amplified the tension in the air and drew his attention back to the envelope. He had noticed it earlier, almost by accident, a simple manila folder with his name written in careful handwriting, yet now it held significance beyond its humble appearance. He reached out slowly, his fingers trembling slightly as he hovered above it, knowing that inside lay the key to understanding the situation. The mystery was not just about what his daughter had done, it was about why she had done it, and what unseen truths had guided her actions. Every instinct in him screamed to open it to uncover the hidden story, and yet caution whispered to wait, to observe, to consider before acting. He could see the curiosity in the eyes of everyone in the room, the anticipation building as if the air itself was holding its breath. The homeless girl shifted slightly, her gaze calm but steady, a silent acknowledgement that the envelope contained something important, that she had entrusted his daughter with the weight of responsibility pressed down on him, and he knew that the revelation inside could either destroy or strengthen the fragile bond forming before him. He wondered what secrets it could hold. Could it be a letter explaining intentions, a document revealing past hardships, or perhaps an account of events that none of them had fully understood until this moment? The possibilities twisted in his mind, each one more compelling and terrifying than the last. The daughter met his eyes, a brief nod conveying reassurance that what lay inside was not meant to harm but to reveal a truth long hidden. He felt a surge of conflicting emotions, fear, curiosity, anticipation, and an almost reverential respect for the bravery required to bring the contents to him. He realized that this simple folder was more than paper and ink. It was a vessel of trust, a bridge between misunderstanding and clarity, between judgment and empathy, and he understood that opening it would not just answer questions, it would demand that he confront his own preconceptions about class, about morality, about the boundaries he had placed around love and protection. The silence around him seemed heavier now, every movement magnified, every slight sound a shuffle, a breath, a tap on the table became monumental, and he could feel time stretching as he prepared to take the first step toward understanding. He thought about all the moments leading to this instant, the small acts of kindness he had overlooked, the quiet gestures of his daughter, the presence of the homeless girl in her life, and how each had converged into this single unavoidable moment. The room seemed to pulse with expectation, a quiet electric tension that seemed almost alive, as if the space itself was aware of the imminent revelation and the implications it carried. He felt a deep breath rise in his chest, and with it a sense of solemn responsibility. He could not ignore the truth any longer. He had to witness it, to accept it, and to learn from it. He reached forward, and his fingers touched the envelope, the paper slightly rough beneath his touch, and the reality of what he was about to discover settled like a stone in his stomach. He understood that whatever lay inside could shock him, could challenge everything he believed, and yet it could also illuminate the courage and humanity of his daughter and the girl she had chosen to help for the first time. He felt a mixture of dread and excitement, knowing that in moments the mystery would be solved and the story of their connection would finally emerge fully, revealing the compassion, resilience, and unexpected bravery that had been quietly unfolding all along. And as he held the envelope, there was a moment of stillness, a breathless pause that seemed to hold eternity itself. And in that pause, he realized that the true power of the moment lay not in the revelation itself, but in the journey he had taken to reach it. The anticipation in the room was nearly unbearable, yet it was that very tension that made the moment meaningful, that made him feel alive and aware that he was about to witness a story that would change his perspective forever, that would challenge assumptions, that would demand reflection and prepare him for the emotional truths he was about to confront. The envelope was more than paper. It was the threshold between ignorance and understanding, the unknown and the revealed. And as he finally prepared to open it, he could feel every heartbeat, every thought, every instinct aligned toward uncovering the story that had been waiting patiently for him to see it. To understand how everything had come to this point, it was necessary to look back to the early days when his daughter had first met the homeless girl. The encounters had begun innocently, small gestures unnoticed by most, a shared smile on a street corner, a handed-over sandwich, a moment of conversation that lasted longer than expected. It seemed harmless at first, fleeting interactions that could easily be dismissed, yet beneath the surface, something deeper was forming, a connection built on trust, empathy, and an unspoken understanding of hardship. The daughter had always been compassionate. She had always shown an instinctive awareness of the struggles others faced, but in this instance her concern became more focused and deliberate. She had sought out the girl multiple times, offering assistance, quietly, unobtrusively, making sure that each act of kindness was genuine and meaningful. She did not seek recognition, approval, or reward for her actions, yet the father had been largely unaware of the depth of their relationship. He had seen her visits as trivial or routine, never imagining the emotional intensity and dedication that lay behind them. The homeless girl had a story of her own, one filled with abandonment, deprivation, and the daily fight for survival. Her eyes held a mixture of wariness and hope. She had learned quickly to read intentions, to protect herself, to survive in a world that had often been unkind. Yet the daughter approached her without fear, judgment, or hesitation. She had offered friendship and support in a way that the girl had never experienced before. It was this authenticity that drew them together, creating a bond that grew stronger with each meeting. He remembered glimpses of this bond from his daughter's expressions, from the way she would return home with quiet satisfaction from the small but consistent efforts she made to help others unnoticed by the world at large. And yet these actions had accumulated. They had created a momentum that could not be stopped. The daughter had begun to understand the realities of the girl's life, the challenges she faced, the obstacles that seemed insurmountable to anyone without guidance, and slowly, over time, she had begun to intervene more strategically, providing not just immediate aid but tools, advice, and opportunities to change her circumstances subtly and with care. He had noticed changes in his daughter, her demeanor, her sense of purpose, her quiet determination, but he had not connected them to this relationship. He had thought her involvement in charitable causes was minor, secondary to her daily routines, yet in truth it had been building steadily. The daughter had cultivated patience, resilience, and trust in the homeless girl. These were not fleeting lessons, but life-changing moments. The small acts of sharing food or clothing had evolved into discussions about dreams, goals, and potential. The daughter had listened without judgment. She had encouraged without pressure. She had created a safe space where the homeless girl could express herself and be seen, truly seen. For the first time in years, the father now realized that each seemingly insignificant action was a step in a larger journey, a journey that led to the room he now stood in, where past decisions, past kindnesses, and past courage converged into a moment of reckoning. He could see how their interactions had gradually intensified. He remembered a day when the daughter had brought warm clothes to the girl unnoticed by anyone else, when she had offered a place to rest for a few hours, when she had defended her quietly against a group that had mocked her circumstances. These were small victories, invisible to the outside world, yet monumental in impact. He had dismissed them, thinking they were part of growing up, yet they were the foundation of a relationship that now demanded acknowledgement. He could recall the first time he sensed something different, the way the daughter would light up when she spoke of the girl, the subtle joy that appeared on her face, a joy that came from meaningful engagement, from seeing someone transformed through care. It had taken him months, maybe years, to piece together that what he had once seen as minor indulgences were in fact the seeds of significant human connection. He reflected on how this bond had grown resilient and resiliently independent of his control, a realization that caused both pride and unease within him. He understood now that empathy cannot be constrained by rules, status, or expectations. It grows quietly, naturally, and sometimes unpredictably. Just as the daughter had nurtured this bond, so too had it grown into something powerful and undeniable. The father could now see how their small gestures, combined with consistency, patience, and understanding, had led to a situation he had never imagined. The homeless girl was no longer just a figure on the street. She had become part of their story, part of their lives, in a way that demanded recognition and respect. The daughter had been patient and thoughtful, each interaction measured, yet full of warmth, each choice deliberate, yet genuine, and this understanding slowly settled over him, creating a new perspective. He realized that the story of these two girls was about much more than wealth or status. It was about the enduring human capacity for compassion, connection, and resilience. It was about learning to see beyond appearances, to understand intent, to recognize the quiet courage that exists in the lives of those society overlooks. He now recognized the weight of their journey, the challenges they had faced together, the obstacles they had overcome, and the trust that had been carefully cultivated in secret, and he felt a mixture of awe and humility as he grasped that what he was witnessing was the result of countless moments strung together invisibly, a narrative of growth and humanity that could not be ignored or diminished. As he looked at his daughter and the homeless girl, he saw the culmination of years of quiet action and deliberate care, a story unfolding in real time that demanded acknowledgement, understanding, and above all, empathy. And in that realization, he knew that the mystery in the envelope was merely a continuation of this story, a story rooted in human connection that he was only beginning to comprehend. And as the past illuminated the present, he prepared himself to witness the revelation that would soon bring clarity to all the threads carefully woven together over time. As the days passed, the father began to notice patterns he had previously overlooked, small details that now seemed significant. Glances exchanged between his daughter and the homeless girl, moments when the daughter would return home with a contemplative look or a quiet smile that did not match her words. The father began to feel an unfamiliar sense of unease, as though there were layers to their relationship that he had yet to uncover. He observed her interactions with a heightened awareness, every Phone calls seemed to carry secrecy. Every errand she ran seemed purposeful in ways he could not fully understand. The whispers of acquaintances, colleagues, and distant family members began to weigh on him, their opinions sharp like blades, insinuations about misplaced loyalty, questionable judgments, and the audacity of his daughter to engage with someone outside their social standing pressed upon him relentlessly. Yet despite these external pressures, he could not shake the growing curiosity about the bond forming in the background. He found himself reflecting on the small acts of kindness. She had performed the lunches, she had brought the advice, she had given the times, she had stood up for someone without considering the cost to herself. Each of these moments now seemed like pieces of a puzzle he had ignored for too long. The tension intensified with every passing day. The homeless girl became a recurring presence in the daughter's stories, glimpses of her resilience, courage, and vulnerability filtered through conversations and observations, creating an intricate tapestry that demanded recognition. He struggled internally with conflicting emotions, admiration, fear, frustration, and protectiveness clashing within him, creating an internal storm that he could neither ignore nor resolve easily. He noticed how his daughter would sometimes disappear for hours only to return with a quiet satisfaction, a glow that was both innocent and purposeful. It was clear she was engaged in something meaningful yet mysterious, and he realized that the deeper the bond grew, the more he felt the need to control, understand, and anticipate each move. Yet every attempt to intervene was met with subtle resistance, not overt, but enough to signal that his presence alone could not dictate the outcome. Every interaction between his daughter and the homeless girl became a study in subtlety, each smile, glance, and gesture conveying layers of meaning he could not fully decode. The uncertainty gnawed at him. He feared that he was losing insight into his daughter's life, and that perhaps she had crossed a threshold he could not reclaim. The more he observed, the more he noticed the skill with which she navigated their encounters, a careful balance of honesty, empathy, and discretion. She was building trust while protecting both herself and the homeless girl, and he could sense that each careful decision she made was informed by foresight and compassion, qualities he had not fully acknowledged until now. The internal struggle within him intensified as he weighed judgment against understanding, the voices of others against the silent truths he perceived in their interactions. The room he occupied in his thoughts became a battlefield, each day a test of patience and insight. He could not help but notice the subtle reactions of friends and colleagues, their eyebrows raised, their soft murmurs, their unspoken assumptions, a constant reminder that society was quick to judge and slow to comprehend. He felt the burden of expectation pressing down on him, yet simultaneously, he sensed the quiet power of the daughter's influence, the transformative effect she had on someone who had been invisible to the world. The more he saw the homeless girl grow in confidence, the more he realized that the daughter's choices were shaping a narrative of empowerment, compassion, and resilience, a narrative he could not control and had to respect. The escalation of tension was not only external, but deeply internal. The uncertainty, the anticipation, the unknown outcomes created a pressure cooker of emotion that both frightened and fascinated him. He began to recall previous moments in which small decisions had led to disproportionate consequences, seemingly trivial interactions that had changed trajectories in ways he had never anticipated. The realization that he had underestimated the impact of kindness and attention weighed heavily on him. Every day, he saw evidence of the consequences of connection. Every lesson imparted, every moment of trust built, every word of encouragement the daughter had given the homeless girl now manifested in behaviors, confidence, and a presence that demanded recognition. He felt the inexorable pull toward discovery, toward understanding, toward reconciliation with the unknown. The tension peaked each time he witnessed an encounter they shared, the subtleties of communication, the layered emotions conveyed in glances, the unspoken agreements that only they seemed to understand. It became increasingly clear that the daughter had created a space for empowerment, for dignity, and for growth that he had not anticipated nor fully appreciated until this moment. Yet, simultaneously, the uncertainty persisted, the questions remained unanswered, the mystery of what had been communicated outside his observation, the motives and intentions that had yet to be revealed, created a mounting pressure that demanded attention. He realized that the escalation of tension was a crucible testing his patience, empathy, and capacity to observe without immediate judgment. The more he allowed himself to witness, the more he understood the depth of the daughter's compassion, the strategic care she had employed, and the transformative potential of their actions together. He began to see the larger picture, the convergence of intention, action, and consequence forming a narrative that would soon demand resolution, that would soon require confrontation with truths he had yet to fully understand. And as the days unfolded, the Tension grew inexorably, the external pressures, the internal conflicts, the moral questions, and the anticipation of revelation all combined to create a crescendo that would culminate in the moment when the mystery would finally be unveiled, when the envelope on the table would be opened, when the hidden truths would emerge, and when the father would be forced to confront the full impact of his daughter's choices. The room in his mind was alive with expectation, every heartbeat, every glance, every gesture a note in a symphony of suspense and anticipation. The escalation of tension was deliberate, inevitable, and entirely consuming. As he prepared to face what was coming, he understood that this was not merely a story about class or social status. It was about empathy, courage, human connection, and the unpredictable ways in which lives intertwine to create consequences far beyond immediate comprehension. And in that understanding, he felt a mixture of dread, excitement, and reluctant admiration for the journey that had brought him to this critical juncture, knowing that the revelation that awaited would challenge everything he believed and illuminate the power of compassion in the most unexpected places. He finally reached for the envelope, his fingers trembling slightly as he lifted it from the table. The weight of anticipation pressing against him. The room seemed to hold its breath, the homeless girl and his daughter standing there silently waiting, as if they too sensed the importance of this moment. He slid the flap open, revealing the neatly folded papers inside, a single letter addressed to him in handwriting that was both careful and deliberate. He unfolded it slowly, his eyes scanning the words. The first lines immediately drew him in, conveying a story he had never expected, a story of hardship, resilience, and unspoken bravery. The letter detailed the homeless girl's journey from abandonment to survival, from invisibility to presence, each paragraph a testament to her courage, each line a reminder of the adversity she had faced and the small victories she had achieved through determination and ingenuity. The letter then turned to his daughter, describing how she had been a guiding presence in her life, providing not just material support but emotional guidance, friendship, and hope. The words painted a picture of trust, mutual respect, and the transformative impact of kindness. It became clear that every interaction his daughter had orchestrated had been part of a deliberate effort to empower and protect the girl, not out of rebellion or disregard for her father, but out of genuine compassion and careful strategy. He felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of relief, astonishment, and a profound sense of humility as he realized that the actions he had feared would lead to trouble were in fact creating positive change. The revelation cut through every assumption he had ever held. The letter described specific moments his daughter had intervened in times of crisis, providing not just comfort, but solutions, opportunities, and encouragement. The homeless girl had learned to navigate life with dignity because of the careful guidance and friendship she had received, and the father realized that the narrative he had constructed in his mind about danger, misjudgment, or impropriety was entirely unfounded. The truth was far more beautiful than he had imagined. The letter included anecdotes of how the daughter had protected the girl from ridicule, how she had ensured her basic needs were met without patronizing or diminishing her autonomy, how she had quietly celebrated her achievements and encouraged her growth. Every detail meticulously recounted, giving him a perspective he had never considered. Before he could feel the room spinning slightly as he absorbed the gravity of the revelations, it was not merely information, it was a window into the humanity of both girls, a testament to empathy, courage, and integrity that transcended social boundaries. He glanced up at his daughter, her eyes calm and unwavering, and at the homeless girl whose presence now seemed even more luminous in the context of the story unfolding before him. He realized that he had underestimated their agency, underestimated their capacity to make a meaningful impact, underestimated the quiet power of trust and care. He felt a lump rise in his throat, and his vision blurred slightly with emotion. The letter then described the pivotal moment that had led to this encounter. The girls had orchestrated a meeting not as an act of defiance, but as a culmination of years of careful mentorship and genuine connection. The homeless girl had learned to articulate her story confidently, to show resilience, and to claim a sense of belonging, and the daughter had facilitated this transition, providing a safe and respectful space for authenticity. The father absorbed each word, each carefully chosen phrase, revealing the depth of planning, intention, and thoughtfulness involved. He felt both chastened and inspired, chastened by his assumptions and inspired by the capacity for human compassion to transcend expectations and reshape lives. The letter concluded with an appeal to him to see the truth not as a challenge to his authority, but as a demonstration of his daughter's moral courage and vision. It urged him to recognize the strength in nurturing rather than controlling, to understand that guidance could coexist with autonomy, and that empathy could create ripples far beyond what he had ever imagined. He felt the weight of the words settling over him, like a revelation long overdue, a truth that reframed everything he had feared or doubted. In the room, the tension shifted gradually from apprehension to understanding, a shift so profound that it seemed to redefine the atmosphere entirely. The daughter stepped forward slightly, and the homeless girl mirrored her movement, their subtle synchronization, a quiet affirmation of trust and mutual respect. He realized that this was not a moment of scandal or wrongdoing, but a moment of moral triumph and growth, a demonstration of courage and integrity that demanded recognition and respect. The father felt a wave of gratitude, a deep appreciation for the lessons unfolding before him. He understood that the envelope had not merely contained information, it had been a bridge connecting fear to understanding, judgment to empathy, misconception to truth. The room now seemed alive with possibility. The revelation had altered the emotional landscape, transforming uncertainty and tension into comprehension and connection. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a desire to support and nurture the bond he had witnessed without interference, yet with guidance and care. He finally spoke quietly, his voice thick with emotion, acknowledging the bravery and wisdom of his daughter and expressing admiration for the resilience and courage of the homeless girl. The revelation had shattered preconceived notions, challenged assumptions, and illuminated the extraordinary power of empathy and human connection. He understood that the narrative had been building for years, that the small acts of kindness, the careful planning, and the subtle guidance had all converged to create a transformative experience for everyone involved, and he felt a profound sense of recognition that the true story was far richer, deeper, and more impactful than he had ever imagined. The mystery was no longer a source of fear or confusion. It was a testament to what is possible when compassion, patience, and trust guide human interaction. He folded the letter slowly, absorbing every lesson it imparted, and in that moment, he realized that everything he had feared had been replaced by understanding, admiration, and a newfound respect for the unexpected ways in which love and kindness shape lives. And as he looked once more at his daughter and the girl standing beside her, he knew that this revelation would forever alter his perspective on guidance, connection, and the enduring power of the human spirit. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, the envelope still in his hand, the weight of the truth he had just discovered pressing against his chest. He looked directly at his daughter, her gaze unwavering, steady, full of the quiet confidence that had guided every choice she had made. And he realized that this confrontation was not about anger or reprimand. It was about acknowledgement, understanding, and finally, the face-to-face recognition of the courage that had been quietly building for years. He addressed her carefully, his voice low yet firm, every word deliberate, trying to convey both the intensity of his emotions and the gravity of the situation. He spoke about the fear he had felt, the assumptions he had made, and the judgments he had silently harbored, but he also expressed the profound admiration that had replaced his uncertainty. The daughter listened intently, her posture calm, her eyes locked on his, conveying respect, patience, and a readiness to respond not defensively, but with honesty and integrity. He could feel the tension in the room shift subtly, the homeless girl standing nearby, silently observing every exchange, every word, every nuance of tone. She too seemed to recognize the significance of this confrontation. The father took another breath and continued recounting his observations over the past weeks, the moments he had overlooked, the subtle acts of empathy, the careful guidance he had failed to acknowledge. He spoke of his fear of losing control of a situation he thought he could manage, and of his surprise at discovering that what he had feared was in fact an expression of deep humanity. He paused momentarily, letting the weight of his words settle. The room was quiet save for the soft rustle of air from the window and the faintest sound of footsteps outside. It seemed as if the world itself had paused to witness this exchange. He looked at the homeless girl next and spoke to her directly, acknowledging her courage, her resilience, her openness, and the way she had trusted his daughter despite the hardships she had endured. He expressed his gratitude for the way she had allowed his daughter to guide her gently and with respect, without seeking to manipulate or take advantage of her. The girl nodded slightly, a small gesture, but one filled with dignity and acknowledgement. He then turned back to his daughter and asked her to share her perspective, to articulate her intentions, to reveal the thoughtfulness and purpose behind her actions. She spoke clearly, steadily, recounting her motivations, the deliberate steps she had taken to provide support and guidance, the careful attention she had given to preserving the girl's autonomy and dignity, and the deep empathy that had guided every choice she had made. Her words painted a vivid picture of moral courage, of the quiet heroism that is often overlooked, and he listened, absorbing every detail, feeling both remorse for his initial assumptions and awe for the intentional compassion she had exercised. He asked questions Not to challenge, but to understand, delving into the moments that had built the trust between them, exploring the decisions that had shaped the girl's growth, and the subtle strategies employed to foster empowerment. She responded with clarity, transparency, and humility, revealing the depth of her thoughtfulness. The father could feel the walls of judgment he had unconsciously built crumbling around him, replaced by understanding, appreciation, and a profound respect for the ethical maturity of his daughter. He then asked both of them together to describe the moment that had led to the present scene. The collaborative recounting revealed the meticulous care with which the daughter had planned their encounters, the sensitive support she had provided, the mutual trust that had been cultivated, and the strength that had been nurtured in the homeless girl. It became clear that this confrontation was not about criticism or blame. It was about witnessing the culmination of years of intentional and empathetic effort. The tension that had been building for weeks, months, and perhaps years finally reached its peak as he acknowledged the truth of their story. The room seemed to exhale collectively. The father felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, awe, humility, and pride, all entwined in a complex yet exhilarating mix. He reflected on how easily he had misjudged the situation, how fear and assumptions had clouded his perception, and how the clarity of truth now transformed every prior moment into insight and understanding. He recognized that confrontation was not an act of punishment or control, but an opportunity to engage with truth, integrity, and moral courage. It was a lesson for him as much as it was an acknowledgement of their achievements. The homeless girl spoke softly, sharing her gratitude for the guidance and kindness she had received. Her words filled the room with an undeniable sense of dignity and validation. It was a quiet yet profound confirmation of the power of empathy to change lives. And he felt his heart swell with both relief and pride as he realized the true impact of his daughter's choices. The father then summarized his understanding, acknowledging the moral complexity, the courage involved, and the significance of human connection. He expressed his commitment to support the bond that had been carefully cultivated, to nurture growth, and to respect the autonomy and dignity of everyone involved. This confrontation, which could have been fraught with anger, resentment, or misunderstanding, instead became a moment of reconciliation, enlightenment, and mutual respect. The emotional intensity of the encounter created a shift that would ripple through their lives forever. He recognized that true leadership, guidance, and care do not come from authority alone, but from patience, empathy, understanding, and the willingness to allow those we love to act with integrity. The moment was transformative, a turning point that highlighted the power of observation, listening, and restraint. And as he concluded, he felt a sense of completion, a catharsis that combined the intensity of confrontation with the serenity of understanding. He realized that the climax was not a victory in the conventional sense, but a profound recognition of human courage, resilience, and the enduring power of empathy and compassion. And in that moment, the room seemed to shine with the quiet brilliance of truth, acknowledgement, and connection. The confrontation had fulfilled its purpose, bridging fear and understanding, judgment and insight, control and trust, and the father knew that the lessons learned in this intense exchange would shape his perceptions, actions, and relationships forever. The days following the confrontation were unlike anything he had anticipated. A sense of calm, yet profound change settled over the household. The daughter and the homeless girl continued to interact naturally, their bond now fully recognized and respected by him. The father noticed subtle changes in himself, a new patience, a deeper understanding, and a willingness to step back and observe rather than immediately judge or control. He saw the impact of his acknowledgement reflected in the confidence and joy of both girls. The homeless girl carried herself differently, now a sense of dignity radiating from her that had been nurtured and protected by the daughter. He realized that empowerment is contagious, and that the respect he had granted had amplified the growth and resilience he had witnessed during the confrontation. He noticed how his own relationships shifted, the tension that had existed in the family and among friends began to dissolve, replaced by curiosity, admiration, and cautious acceptance. Those who had whispered doubts now looked on with a new respect, recognizing the integrity of the daughter and the courage of the homeless girl. He reflected on how the letter had not just revealed facts, but had catalyzed a transformation, a realignment of perception and understanding. It was as if a veil had been lifted, exposing the underlying human truth that had been obscured by assumptions, prejudice, and fear. He began to notice the ripple effect of the encounter in small ways. The daughter seemed more confident in her decisions, more willing to take compassionate action without seeking approval. The homeless girl showed newfound initiative, stepping into opportunities with courage and clarity. The father felt a profound sense of pride, admiration, and relief, witnessing the tangible results of years of quiet effort, intentional guidance, and authentic human connection. He also realized that his own role had changed from controller to observer and supporter, a shift that brought relief, and also a sense of responsibility to nurture without dominating to guide, without constraining to respect, without limiting. He saw how this balance allowed growth, freedom, and empowerment, creating a dynamic he had never experienced before. The external world seemed to take notice, as well people he had underestimated began to engage, with the homeless girl differently showing respect, interest, and willingness to help when previously they might have ignored or dismissed her. The shift reinforced for him the transformative power of authentic empathy and the enduring impact of thoughtful action. He noticed that even his own friends and colleagues had subtly altered their attitudes toward charitable engagement. Recognizing that leadership and influence are amplified when coupled with compassion, he reflected on the lessons for himself, how assumptions, fear, and the desire for control had almost prevented him from understanding the full story, and how acknowledgement, patience, and trust had instead opened a pathway to clarity, connection, and growth. The father recognized that consequences are not always immediate or obvious, that they often unfold quietly over time, and that the most meaningful changes result from actions rooted in empathy, care, and respect. He also saw the personal consequences of the daughter's moral courage. The trust she had built allowed her to develop leadership qualities, confidence, and a sense of agency that had previously been suppressed under external expectations. The homeless girl's transformation was equally profound. She had moved from a position of vulnerability and invisibility to one of dignity, empowerment, and potential. The effects of their interactions were cumulative, compounding each day, reinforcing resilience and courage, and he understood that this was only the beginning, that the relationships and lessons forged through these encounters would continue to shape their lives in ways he could not yet predict. The father felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the insights he had gained, but for the opportunity to witness and support the unfolding of human growth. The consequences of the confrontation were not punitive or negative, but generative, creating space for reflection, understanding, and forward movement. He realized that life is often about these moments of reckoning, recognition, and revelation, and that the true measure of action is the ability to foster growth, connection, and empowerment in others. He looked at his daughter and the homeless girl together, seeing the tangible results of courage, empathy, and deliberate kindness. He felt a renewed sense of purpose in supporting the bond, and in allowing the lessons learned to extend beyond the immediate moment. He understood that consequences extend into the future, shaping attitudes, behaviors, and relationships in ways that are often invisible until recognized. He reflected on the transformative power of acknowledgement, patience, and understanding, and he knew that the story he had witnessed would leave an indelible mark on all involved, reinforcing the enduring power of empathy, resilience, and human connection. And as he observed the daily interactions, the shared smiles, the collaborative problem-solving, and the quiet expressions of trust, he realized that the confrontation had not been an end, but a beginning, a catalyst for positive change that would continue to resonate across time, shaping character, perspective, and moral courage in ways both subtle and profound. And he felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that the consequences had unfolded in alignment with the values of compassion, integrity, and understanding that he had come to embrace fully. As he watched his daughter and the homeless girl interact with ease and confidence, he felt a deep sense of reflection settling over him. He considered the journey that had brought them to this moment, the initial fear and assumptions, the escalating tension, the careful observation, and finally the revelation that had reshaped his understanding. He realized that life often presents moments that challenge our beliefs, our perceptions, and our ability to act with empathy and insight. He thought about how easily we judge based on appearances, how quickly we assume intentions without understanding the full context, and how frequently we overlook the quiet acts of courage that shape lives in profound ways. He reflected on the lessons his daughter had taught without intending to teach: the power of patience, the importance of trust, the impact of consistent care, and the profound significance of allowing others to grow through their own choices. He considered how often he had allowed his desire for control and certainty to cloud his ability to see the truth, and he felt both remorse and gratitude for the clarity that had finally emerged. He thought about the homeless girl and the resilience she had shown, how courage can be nurtured when met with empathy and guidance, how dignity can flourish when trust is respected, and how human connection transcends social boundaries to create opportunity, transformation, and hope. He recognized that this story was not just about his family or their personal journey. It was a universal narrative about the power of compassion, the importance of understanding, and the necessity of recognizing the humanity in others. He asked himself quietly what other opportunities he might have missed to support growth without imposing control, how many other moments in life are overlooked because we fail to see beyond surface judgments, and he felt a renewed commitment to approach the world with humility and openness, to listen, observe, and understand before acting. He reflected on The delicate balance between guidance and freedom, control and trust, protection and empowerment, and realized that true influence comes not from asserting authority, but from fostering understanding and encouraging others to act with integrity. He thought about the ripple effects of the daughter's choices, how her empathy had transformed the life of someone previously invisible to society, and how her courage had, in turn, reshaped his own perceptions and beliefs. He realized that we are all teachers and learners in different moments, that the lessons we impart often come from our actions more than our words, and that the impact of those lessons may extend far beyond what we can immediately perceive. He considered the future for both the homeless girl and his daughter, the potential for continued growth, connection, and mutual empowerment, the importance of nurturing relationships that are built on trust, authenticity, and empathy, and he recognized that the story they had created together was only the beginning of a lifetime of learning and discovery. He wondered how many other hidden narratives exist around us, how many quiet acts of courage and compassion are going unnoticed, and he felt a deep appreciation for the privilege of witnessing the story and learning from it. He acknowledged that the confrontation, the revelation, and the ensuing consequences had changed not only the lives of those directly involved, but also his own understanding of love, responsibility, and moral courage. He realized that life's most profound lessons often come from observing and supporting the growth of others without interference, and he committed to carrying these insights forward into all his relationships, seeing beyond appearances, valuing intentions and actions, and nurturing resilience where it arises. He understood that the story of his daughter and the homeless girl was a microcosm of what is possible when empathy, patience, and trust guide human interactions, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose to live in alignment with these principles, to recognize and honor the courage and growth in others, and to create opportunities for transformation through understanding and care. He reflected on the importance of pausing before judgment, of listening before responding, of seeing before acting, and he knew that these lessons would forever inform how he approached not just his family, but the world at large. He thought about the enduring nature of empathy, the long-term impact of intentional kindness, and the profound truth that every act of understanding and support contributes to shaping a more compassionate and resilient future. And as he watched them together, he felt a deep sense of hope, gratitude, and conviction, knowing that the story was not simply ending, it was continuing, evolving, and offering lessons for everyone willing to witness, learn, and embrace the power of authentic human connection. If you found yourself inspired by this story, if you felt the tension, the curiosity, the emotional journey of discovery, then I invite you to take a moment to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It helps us continue bringing stories that captivate, challenge, and move you. And if you want to dive even deeper into moments of human courage, empathy, and surprising revelations, there is another video appearing on the screen right now waiting for you to watch it. Click on it and continue exploring incredible stories that reveal the power of compassion and the unexpected ways lives can intersect and transform each other. By subscribing, you join a community that values curiosity, understanding, and the extraordinary potential within ordinary moments. By liking the video, you let us know that these narratives resonate with you and encourage us to keep uncovering and sharing the untold stories that inspire and move people around the world. Every story we tell is a journey, a chance to reflect, to learn, and to witness the beauty, resilience, and bravery that exists quietly around us, and your engagement makes that possible. So take this moment to connect with the content, to continue the adventure, to embrace the lessons and insights that emerge from stories like this. And remember that the journey does not end here. The next video waiting for you is another chance to experience emotion, suspense, inspiration, and reflection. Click watch and allow yourself to be drawn into another narrative that challenges perceptions and celebrates human courage. And as you do so, remember to subscribe for more captivating stories and click like to let us know that these tales of empathy and bravery make a difference in your day. Thank you for staying with us, for sharing this journey of revelation, understanding, and growth, and enjoy the next story that is just a click away as we continue exploring the extraordinary within the ordinary and celebrating the human spirit in all its complexity and beauty.